Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. One of the most challenging yet, I enjoy this series. It really makes me work, is the Optima's Where to Start. And it's where we break these lakes down, and it's all from lakes that you guys give me comments. And by giving me a comment, you get a chance to win a free battery. So this month, we've got 3 really different challenging lakes for me. One's in California, one's in Pennsylvania, and the last one's in Arkansas. So you guys stay tuned. We're gonna do the Optima Where to Start, break these lakes down for the month of June. Okay, so the object behind this series that we do every month is just to try to help somebody start. You know, where do you make that first cast? What goes through my mind? I've been professionally fishing for a long time, guys. I'm over 20 years. I go to a lot of new lakes. Why do I start somewhere? You know, that's what I'm trying to break down for you guys. Like, you know, and we've done a lot of these through the years. You guys can go back and watch some of the other videos. I've done a lot of lakes. I've even done some of these lakes 2 and 3 times now. If you just really sit down and dive into the series of where to start, but it's just, I try to give you 2 or 3 or 4 spots and why I would start there. The fishing style that I have, you know, I just always try to put myself in a high percentage area. So enough talking about it. Let's talk about the lakes. One of you guys, one of my subscribers here, they sent in Raystown Lake in Pennsylvania. Man, a pretty cool lake. It's long, it's narrow. I read that they built it for, you know, hydroelectric power, but man, when I look at Google Earth, there's very, very few photos actually going through the electric power of the dam. So when I zoom in on the dam here at Raystown Lake, you know, and I really look at it and I go back through the history, there's not a lot of water that I'm ever seeing go through this thing, but you can tell it gets water going through it, you know, because there's not a lot of vegetation, you know, like through this stretch. I think I go back through there, in one of these photos, there's some water going through, so I feel like they generate electricity at night. I don't know why, but that's my story and I'm sticking to it. So I can't really depend on a lot of current coming through this lake. It must be pretty consistent, and at night they probably get it going pretty good. That's just what I feel like. So when you look at this, like this lake, and it's just, man, look at it. When I zoom out, super long, super windy, a lot of the same, just super steep banks, horseshoe bends, you know, an inside bend, an outside bend. You got tons of that. You've got 1, 2 main creeks. And this creek in particular right here, when I zoom in on it, man, it's flat. Like we talk about all the time, if you go to a lake and a place to start, find the biggest flats. Well, that even works on these mountainous lakes like this, because that's the most habitat, spawning habitat, where the most amount of fish can spawn. And what I mean by that, so if we zoom back out here, just to explain it, you've got all these S-bends around here. Yes, fish can spawn, but not a lot of them. If fish were to line the bank, they can only spawn, let's say, in 3 feet of water all the way around that bank. Well, because 3 feet of water is only that wide when the bank's this steep. You know, there's only a little portion of that bank that they could spawn on in 3 foot of water. Well, when you take a big flat like this in the back of this creek, your 3 foot of water was this steep, you know, is this wide. When you make it this, now I've got 3 feet of water this wide. So what I'm saying is that many more fish can spawn, thus that bigger population of fish can be in these creeks that have a big spawning flats in it. So, I mean, this to me is like, that's where I start. Well, when I zoom in on it, it looks like there's a big boat ramp right there. So, looks like you probably have a lot of tournaments out of this deal right here. Which is not a bad thing. I mean, a lot of fish are going to be brought back in here to this creek, you know, to spawn, but it looks like a really cool creek. I mean, it looks like a cool lake. I mean, you got this road bed, you got grass beds, you know, when I start going back through time, it looks really, really awesome. Like you've got, you know, a lot of cover, a lot of grass. I mean, look at all this grass back here. This is back in 2012. But it looks like a cool lake. I mean, so for me, where to start, the month of June, I feel like spawning flats, a lot of fish spawning. You could still have fish hanging out in these spawning flats, now, around those brim beds and those kinds of things. But man, I would start on some of these steeper banks right outside of this spawning flat. I would be looking for a shad spawn in the morning, shade. I got a really good shade line on this bank right here. So that's going to be in the shade all day long. To me, that's a good spot to start. These corners, just as you come out of this creek, I would fish all this as quick as I could, all these different points until I get to this main stretch. And then I would, I'd fish these main corners on each side of it. When I go over here to my C-map and I zoom in on that, there's not a lot of extended stuff out in the water. But right there at that island, this Pee Wee Island, I've got a really good saddle. Man, to me, that's another place that I would start. I really like this saddle just because you got water flowing out this way. You just got pulling. I like saddles. Anytime the wind's blowing, it's just a funnel point for shad. Having to go over it, bass really use that. So there is lots of road beds in this lake. So, looking at the C-map, I'd also have to pay attention to some of these road beds. It looks like there's also maybe some standing timber underneath the water. But this creek in particular, it really shows up on the C-map. You can just see all the colors of the flatter water. So you just got big spawning bays right there to where you don't have it anywhere else on this map, like 0 places. James Creek, that's what the name of it is. That's where I would start, and I would fish all these points right outside of these spawning pockets on Raystown Lake. Now, if I have to pick something else, a different direction, when I start looking at the upper end of this lake, I like to have a little color in my water. It compresses how much of the water fish are going to be using. If the dirtier the water, the shallower those fish are going to live. And when you get up here, it looks like you got some mud banks, you got some wind-blown banks. I want to run up that lake. From there, if I had to pick something else, I'm going to get up that lake in some shallower, more stained water than the lower end of that lake. For me, in a quick amount of time, on a place to start, I want to get someplace that puts things in my favor, just higher percentage. If I can compress where I've got to look, 90% of the bass live in 10% of the lake, I can find them that much quicker. And to me, that is up this river where it narrows down. You can see how the watercolor really changes right here. I would start looking up here. These outside channel being shade, just really, it's a cool lake to run shade in the top water all day, guys. That's probably what I would do. I'd start running all this different shade, paying attention to the bank where I got a bite. You got a spawning pocket here, any of that kind of stuff. That's where I would start on Raystown Lake. Looks like a super cool lake. Looks like a challenging lake, I'll be honest. Just being long and narrow and not a lot of, these got mud banks up here. So anywhere I'd have a little bit of rock up here, I think that would be good. It's got lots of wood, it looks like, but it doesn't have a lot of rock right up here in this particular stretch because the banks get so muddy. But anywhere you had a little rock outcropping, pretty good isolated log right there. So then it changes. So we go from mud to bluff. Those are kind of things that I would look at. I'd look at those transition areas like that for places to start. All right, thank you for sending in that lake. Great lake, challenging lake, but I appreciate you sending it in. That one creek, though, that's a hard creek to beat, and that's pretty obvious looking at it. But all right, let's do the next lake. And it's out in California, a lake I've never been to. I'd love to go. They said, could you break down Pine Flat Lake in California? So when I looked this lake up, one of the websites says that it's 80 feet above full pool. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's really high. What I did notice on a couple different websites, it has a lot of water going through it. So let me zoom out. Let's go across our great country here. I just dropped a pin so I could find it really quick on it. It's just outside of Bakersfield, and it's a lake really kind of similar to the lake we just looked at. It's a deep, clear, like a highland type reservoir. Man, and it looks like it has fluctuated. When I went back and looked at some of these photos there's some photos like where this lake has gotten super low, super low. But it's a flood control lake. I'm sure they use it for a lot of water. In my mind, when I look at it and I zoom out, it's got to have, you know, you can see all this snowpack up here. It's got to have some super cold water coming into it. You know, the month of June, I think you're going to have some really cold water up here. I'm sure it's got trout in it. But I'm going to keep it simple, and I'm going to try to, like, anytime I go to a lake, guys, like, I try to relate it to something I have confidence in. You know, like, in June, I have confidence in generation schedules. I have confidence in water flowing through a reservoir. Well, this lake has got water going through it. You know, it's not a big lake, but it's got 12,000 cubic feet of water going through it, and it's got, like, 14,000 cubic feet of water coming into it. So it's got a constant flow going through it. And again, this video series is a place to put that trolling motor over the bow of the boat and make that first cast. So when I look at this lake and I think about it, like, I just got lots of water flowing through. In my mind, I'm thinking colder water up here in this upper body of water, you know, this upper stretch. You know, especially coming out of this river, but then this is going to be out of the flow. So I feel like, man, I got to think here, but I feel like, man, these inside points, like right around this, to me, is going to be an area where a fish could, man, I like points. Like, just, I feel like all these fish are going to be depending on that current to bring them their food. You know, I'm sure this thing's got trout in it and all those other things you guys have out there, shad and all that stuff. But when you have constant current going through a body of water, fish seek that out. So, you know, that's a good point there. I guess I picked out that point because I felt like there'd be a big temperature change between this main river and this pocket right here. But then when I really start looking at it, you know, I like upwards facing points that when you can find a point that kind of really faces up current, like, you know, this one here faces down current. I'm not seeing a lot of them, to be honest with you. That one kind of points in the direction of the current. That one kind of points in the direction of the current that is coming. That one right there, that point right there faces into the current. I like pinch points. You know, that's a big pinch. You know, look how narrow that is right there versus everything else on either side of it. I like areas like that. That's an area where I'm going to start. You know, if I feel like these fish are completely relating to current. I got some rock changes on it. This is pretty cool looking. Let's see what this looks like going back in time. My internet is really slow. Oh, wow. Okay, so we just took the water off of that. And yeah, you got rock and then you just got mud on either side of it. So man, that's a really, really cool transition for me. And I've never been there. I don't know a lot about it. Look how low that water is. Wow. Wow. That's cool. So there's the lake. It's kind of a split screen right there. And you can see at one time or another, there was no water anywhere around. And you can see right there, there is water. Look at the road and people driving around. But back to this point. Man, you just got like mud, and then rocks. You've got something flat, and then it's hitting that rock. To me, that's different than anything else down that stretch for either way. So those fish are going to relate right here, in my opinion, 100%. I like that point even better now that I can see how much mud and how flat it is on either side of it. So that's kind of a cool point. Look at how that point faces upstream. That may be underwater because there's water right there. Let's just see. Yeah, that's way underwater. If you guys are 80% full. The other thing that I noticed on this lake, look at that airplane flying across that Google Earth caught. You got a big body of water and it necks down right here at the dam. These points right here in this stretch are going to have a lot of current, like wind current, generating current, like I like these points here too. Any of these that run out. Let me see what it looks like on my C-map. Well, my contour lines are not loading with the internet that I have here on this lake. Okay. So still, I'm back to looking at those neck down places in June. That's just what I'm looking for. I feel like that. if those fish have spawned and moved offshore, that's what I'm looking for. Like, and I feel like right here, you know, in this last stretch of before the dam, you know, this is going to be deep drop shot type fishing, shaky head fishing. I think for me, I would focus on those areas that it really narrows down. I would focus on areas that I have change in the bottom composition. You know, you've got a lot of red banks, and then you got some rock. You've got these washes. It might be a cool place you could just do a lot, you know, when the wind gets to blowing, really start cranking, maybe throwing a spinnerbait if they're up that shallow, but man, look how far out that point sticks. You could just really fish those mud-blown banks, you know, especially in those neck-down areas. For me, that would be places I would start. Other than that, these couple creeks up here to me look really, really intriguing. You know, we always talk about the flatter areas, bigger spawning pockets. Well, these are those areas up there. You can see how flat this creek is right here, and it's 80 feet high. Well, you're going to have water way, way, way back up in here, probably to this bridge. Man, that might be a good place to start right there. You're going to have shade. Fish, in my opinion, when water comes up, not in my opinion, I know for a fact, when water comes up, those fish swim as far up it as they can if there's current coming in. You know, on a bridge like that, when that water comes up, they will congregate right there big time. I like that. You know, you've got a little water flow already in that thing, it looks like, just natural water flow. And then I think there's going to be a transition. If this water is cool, coming out of this main river, out of these mountains, same thing is going to happen. There is going to be a big pile of fish just really pull to the upper end of this body of water. You know, as far up this thing as they can go, you know, these flats. And again, you got to realize water's 80 feet high, you know, or a lot higher than these photos are showing. So they're going to be, and any of this cover up here, you know, anything you got, trees, wood, bushes, I feel like you should have a lot of that stuff in the water way up this lake that's brand new to those fish. It's going to be fertile, and it's just like, there's a photo right there. The water's high, 2010. Look how much further up this thing you can go. It's all the way to these bigger trees. So to me, yeah, you can see the difference right there. That's going to be an older photo and a newer photo. I am going to focus on that upper end of that body of water. You know, as things heat up, water's coming in, they're going to seek that fresh, new, cool water, all that new nutrients. When that lake spreads out like it has, and what you guys have going on out there with all the rain and snow melt and all that stuff, it's probably going to do nothing but keep coming up. So to reiterate what we're talking about, places to start on Pine Flat Lake. Pinch points. You've got a lot of flow coming through this thing. Any of those main points, any of those areas where it all necks down and they've got to go through there. The same thing as a saddle we talked about at that other lake. Main lake points, wind-driven areas, that's going to muddy that up a little bit. I feel like this lake's going to be super clear, you know, and anytime I can muddy it up, those fish can come up shallow, start biting a crankbait, maybe a spinnerbait, shaky head, those kinds of things. And then the other place that I would want to start would be way up that river, like where that water's coming in, to me would be a big, big key of a place to look on a lake like this. All right, man, that's a great lake, challenging lake. It's hard to do without a good map of it and really a good Google Earth photo of something of your current conditions with how much that lake's come up. But I always like looking at new lakes. It's just intriguing to me to see all the different lakes across this country. All right, you guys stay tuned because we are going to announce the winner at the end of this video of somebody that left one of these comments from last month's video, and just give you a brand new battery certificate for your boat, your truck, your car, whatever you need. Okay, the last one. These videos are great. I look forward to them every month. James Cooper said Lake Ouachita. June coming up. All right, let's go to Lake Ouachita. I have been there. It has been a long time, but what a cool lake. Okay, man, what a lake. This thing, you talk about no shortage of places to fish. Lake Ouachita has got that. And it's really similar kind of to the two other lakes that we just broke down. You know, when I zoom in on this thing, you just see like it's just got water for days. Here's the dam right here. Kind of a narrow section, then you got this big open body water, and then you've got, you know, these three rivers that feed it. you know, from the west. I've fished here before and I know a little bit about it. I don't know that I've ever fished it in June, but when you look at Lake Ouachita, it is overwhelming. It's just like, holy smokes, where do you start? I mean, you just have shoreline for days. Like, I don't know what the shoreline is here, but it's got to be over 1,000 miles. I mean, it's just incredibly a lot of shoreline. So what I do, you know, to try to put this down in my favor is, you can see I've got a watercolor change. I've got dirty water to clean water, a dirty water to clean water, same thing, dirtier water to clean water. You know, when you go back and you look at a few of these photos in this 30,000 foot view, I want to go to the section of the lake where that mixes. And then let me tell you why. Okay, so down here, I've got really clear water. Fish could be 20, 30, 40, 50 feet deep in June. Super deep. Up here, you've got super dirty water. Why, you say, Edwin, why are you not choosing that? Yes, you can go up there in June, but I think you limit yourself to the amount of fish that you have up there. I also think lots of people do it. So like for me, I want to find that section of lake where they mix. And I love looking at sections of the lake where it all comes together. And I mean, you draw a circle around that stretch right there. You've got 3 different bodies of water that come together to form the lake. Like it's a transition area. Big lake, rivers, they mix, they meet right in here. So that's where I want to start, in that stretch right there. So now, we've picked a stretch of the lake. When I look at it and I'm like, man, there's still a lot of water there to break down, because, you know, really, you know, we talk about flats and spawning flats and all that stuff. Well, there's lots of spawning habitat on this lake. When you zoom in on all this, I mean, they can spawn on the main lake, they can spawn in the pockets, they can spawn anywhere they want to. I mean, they just truly can. When you look at this photo here, all this is, you know, every one of those pockets is spawning habitat. Yes, you've got some flatter areas right there. You can see this flat runs out. This runs out, that hump right there. You got some big flats right there. You can see underneath the water, if you see what I'm looking at. Those I like those a lot. So, right, I mean, I'm sitting here looking at this map. What sticks out to me? That right there. I got a big bluff end, I got a flat, I got a saddle, I got spawning pocket this side, bluff on this side. That sticks out to me. That is, to me, is a spot I would go start. I've got a lot of stuff I can do right there. I've got river channel swing. I've got spawn. They can spawn right here. I've got a saddle right here. I mean, this just screams it'll house fish year round right there. So I like that spot. That's something. It's in the section of the lake where everything comes together. I like this saddle right here. I mean, that to me looks really good too. Let's see if that's the final photo. But to me, that's a spot I would start. I like this flat off this point right here. This to me looks really, really good. You know, you're just going to have some edges, some keys. You're going to have brush piles out here on this flat that I like it. I like the way it looks. To me, that's something that's a place I would start. I like, and there's a lot of stuff I like here. I've got a few more right here. I've got a hump right here. It's a little smaller. Maybe makes it an easier place to start. But when I zoom in on that, I've got a pretty good hump right there. Let's just look at some of that stuff on CMAP and see exactly how deep it is. So there's that saddle right there that I'm talking about. You know, it's 23 feet. That's a perfect depth. That's a perfect depth to start in the month of June. You know, you've got, that's just a good depth. You got really deep water, 100 foot. You got a little saddle right there. You got an extended point. I love the way that thing sits. You know, if I needed to be a little bit deeper, I've got a hump here that comes up to 30. I've got one here that comes up to 25, you know, out on those other couple flats. And then we mentioned this hump right here, just being smaller. Where'd it go? It must be that one right there, just that smaller hump right there. It looks like it tops out at 30 feet. You got this extended point right there. I've got 3 or 4 areas right there that I can fish really, really quick. and get a bite. It's going to be offshore fishing. That could be, if I got a little stain to the water, that could be deep cranking. That could be a football jig, a stand-up worm, a shaky head, a drop shot, those kinds of things. In that saddle early in the morning, that could be a topwater. Those fish could be schooling big time in that stretch, in that zone right there, really, really easy. The little bit I do know about the lake, when I've been there in the past, it had offshore grass. I fished this stretch over here, but it was in the fall. I was running way up these creeks, throwing a frog and those kinds of things. These creeks can be really good over here too, but back to never being to a body of water, that's why I choose where the main river mixes where that main lake is. I feel like I got the nutrients of the river right before it hits all the clarity of the big lake. And here you've got all three of those things coming together. There's going to be so many run out gravel points, tips of points. Like look at this point right here. It faces upstream perfectly. To me, I like that a lot. I love fishing around islands, any of that kind of stuff. There's just so many areas out there around that island that's going to have wind on it at some time or another. One side of that island is going to have wind on it whatever direction it blows because it's out in the middle of the lake. So I like starting in a stretch where that all mixes when I go to a great big lake like this. And those are some areas that I would start right there at Lake Ouachita in Arkansas. Cool lake. Man, I'd like to go back there. The last time we were there, it was really, really cool. All right, so those are some where to starts, guys. I want to tell you the winner from last month. And, man, I randomly go through here, guys, and I just randomly pick a winner. And here it is. David Blankenship, 32. He said, thanks for covering the different types of lakes. You can always compare them to the lakes you're fishing. Man, David, you're exactly right. You may not fish Lake Ouachita, you may not fish Pine Flat, you may not fish whatever Raystown, but you can take any of that and apply it to your lake in your part of the country. So, man, David, I appreciate the comment. All you got to do is send me an email, buddy. I am going to send you a battery certificate. That's the only winner in this video, guys. That's it. If I didn't say your name, I'm sorry for the spam and all that stuff that's happening in these videos. You didn't win. I'll never ask for money. I'll never ask you send me anything other than David. He just needs to send me an email so I can get him that certificate and he can get his brand new Optima Blue Top battery. As always, man, we do this video series once a month. Big thanks to Optima for sponsoring it. We give a battery away every month. Man, just leave me a comment. By leaving a comment, you'll be entered in the drawing next month. Tell me a lake you want me to break down. Tell me a little bit about the lake. Spotted bass, smallmouth, largemouth. Make it a little bit easier on me. But I appreciate all the comments. Appreciate all the support. Hit the like button. Be sure you're a subscriber, guys, and we will see you next week.